Hello and welcome to the big picture. The 9-day visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to France, Germany and Canada beginning today will be watched with a great deal of interest across the world. Prime Minister Modi during his last 11 months in office has made many visits abroad, with focus being on the East and Pacific nations. This has led to an impression that India was ignoring the West European countries. This visit should be able to erase that impression. The visit is now being dubbed in some parts of Europe as India's or Modi's Link West policy. Two of the most significant parts, France and Germany, have been major parts which can offer India many things in several areas, while India can also offer some key requirements to them. Modi's visit to Canada also has a lot of significance, as he will be the first Indian Prime Minister to visit there on a bilateral visit in more than 4 decades. So today we will look at this major visit to the Indian Prime Minister and what it has to offer to the countries he is visiting and from them to India. To discuss this, I have with me Amarnath Ram, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, Professor Gulshan Sachdeva, Center for European Studies at the JNU, TCA Rangachari, former Ambassador to both France and Germany, P. Stobdan, Senior Fellow, Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, and Pramit Pal Chaudhary, Foreign Affairs Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Ram, is this some kind of is this impression which had gained that India was a little ignoring the Western countries or these West European countries? Was that the right impression? Was it that this government had given too much importance to the Look East or Act East and also the US, and at the cost of Europe?
I don't think so. I mean, let's look at Prime Minister's visits in the past few months since he assumed office. The first was, of course, to Bhutan, Nepal, the neighboring countries, SAARC. Then, of course, the circle was expanded and it covered the Asia-Pacific countries. Now it was natural for him to look at these 3 countries, which, don't forget, are a direct part of his overall outreach program, diplomatic outreach program. All these 3 countries are members of the G8, members of the G20. They are the world's major economies. Prime Minister's focus obviously has been on economic issues, on economic cooperation. The fact that we have neglected visiting these countries in the past on a regular basis, even though we have had summit-level dialogue arrangements with the European Union, for example, which has not materialized in the last year or so, would suggest that the Prime Minister's focus now is to fill in that void in the total coverage that we are giving in our international relations to our friends and partners. So I think it is not neglect, it is really making good on something which he has always believed in, that is to expand our economic outreach, strategic outreach to friends in Western Europe and in North America who could cooperate with us in the coming years in our fulfilling our national priorities.
Stobdan, you think that the previous government was there a problem in dealing with these West European nations by the previous government, and what were the reasons?
No, I don't think this was a problem, but what I think is that this time this has been very carefully conceptualized, a visit to Europe, where you rightly said that he first went to East. This is where the economic growth is taking place. There is no economic growth in Europe. So you have to prioritize. The East is important from that point of view, and the West is important from the technology point of view. So this visit is about technology, modernization, industrialization. So this is a program, it's a partnership in that regard. So the countries themselves are not important. It's the theme which is very important. I think this is why this visit is very significant.
Okay, Mr. Rangachari, when this visit was being planned, India and the Prime Minister was very keen to go to Brussels also, and but there is some problem there as far as the European Union is concerned.
Well, let me first get back to the point that you made about having quote-unquote neglected.
Yes.
If we go back a few months on the way to Brazil for the BRICS summit, the Prime Minister had stopped in Germany. And at the time when that stopover was to take place, at the planning stage, there was a possibility of a meeting with the Chancellor.
Which did not happen.
It so happened that the dates of his visit coincided with the World Cup football. And Germany won the football. Germany got into the finals and Angela Merkel went to watch that match. So I don't think it is right to fault the government for not having tried to fix the meeting. That was attempted and it didn't work out. So I don't think neglect would be a right way of looking at this. Germany and France both remain important for us. You asked about Brussels. Yes, there was some reports, but I have not seen anything from official sources either from the Indian side or from the side of the European Union as to what exactly the purpose of that planned visit would have been, and if that was not taking place, why it was not taking place. And in any case, insofar as the European Union is concerned, as of now, it's Germany and France which are the important drivers in the European Union, and hopefully the kind of views that would be expressed and discussed between the two sides would have a very important bearing on whatever view and whatever approach that the European Union itself take towards India. In any case, if I might add one more sentence, currently the European Union is grappling so much with the crisis in the Eurozone that I'm not sure to what extent they have the capability to take new initiatives insofar as India is concerned. Of course, if they would, that would be very welcome, because India has always, to my mind, dealt with the European Union as also the partner countries who are part of the European Union as good friends, as stable friends, and has tried to develop relationship in a multifaceted way in all of these countries. So if the European Union and India, that is European Union as European Union, not simply as bilateral relationships with the major countries of Europe, if that as an organization can provide new initiatives in our relationship, I'm sure that would be very welcome in India.
Okay, Professor Sachdeva, how do you look at this? You know, the Brussels, Mr. Rangachari was saying that we don't know whether there was any official, attempt to go to Brussels and things like that. But in a visit like this, you're in Germany, you're in France, Brussels would have been automatically should have been automatically part of that visit. But anyway, there seems to be a problem there. But as far as these other two countries are concerned, what is it that India will be looking at as far as France and Germany are concerned?
Well, you're absolutely right. In fact, if actually along with his visit to Germany, France, if there would have been another India-EU summit in Brussels, it would have been actual real focus on Europe, because Europe is our very important partner as far as trade, investment, technology transfer is concerned. And there has been, particularly on the India-EU relationship, there has been a bit of a momentum has been lost in the last 1 or 2 years. And there have been certain problems in Europe. But despite all the problems in Europe and, stagnation in growth, still I think their productivity levels are pretty high. They still have a lot of resources. And if one is actually looking that, economics is actually pushing our foreign policy, then perhaps we have somehow, I would say, neglected Europe to some extent for the last 1 year. Because if you look at all our programs, you look at Make in India, you look at Digital India, you look at Clean Ganga, you look at renewable energy, I think European participation and their contribution would be pretty useful. And so far, I mean, now they are looking towards India, because what they felt that during the UPA 2 regime, there was policy paralysis. Still, in fact, Indian investment has somehow declined in the last couple of years in Europe because of problems in Europe. But European investment to India actually has grown in the last 1 or 2 years, because what they have seen now, there is a new hope in India, and this is one area where still the growth is happening. So as the biggest trading bloc and one of the biggest actually players even in the services in the global affairs, I think this visit is very useful. There may not be big ticket kind of things happening immediately, particularly with France on whether on the nuclear issues or on aircrafts. But I think the sentiment that now India is ready for investment and technology from Europe, that's, I think, the message would be very useful. And I think in that sense, visit is very useful.
Okay. Pramit, how do you look at this? You know, when Gulshan talks about some kind of a neglect in the last 1 year or so, do you think that that is being made up now? And what do you think is the major thrust of the Prime Minister as far as the Prime Minister is concerned?
Well, as has been mentioned, the Prime Minister's foreign policy has been very tightly converged with his economic policy. And at the heart of that is the revival of manufacturing and the attraction of foreign capital, especially for long-term infrastructure investment. Europe is a player in that, but it is not as big a player as China or Japan. Europe does not have surplus capital. It is the Asian countries which have surplus capital. So it is not unexpected that he would go there to Asia first. He revived a relationship with America which was under trouble. Partly because it was important, America, because it's simply the single largest and most powerful nation in the world, still wasn't a country that he had to deal with. Europe, there are two parts of the European. One is mentioned as the European Union, which is effectively functions like a multilateral organization as far as India is concerned. And then there are 2 or 3 major European countries that he has interests in. Of these, Germany is by far the most important because, again, when it comes to his economic policies, Germany fits most closely with what Modi is looking for. Manufacturing, Germany is the manufacturing powerhouse among all the European countries. It has by far the most extensive the manufacturing and infrastructure capacities. So Germany was always at the heart of what he was most interested in. France comes in a bit secondary, and of course what's missing here, and one I presume will mean because of the present elections that are coming there, is Britain, which is of course the 3rd largest European economy. That is not visiting in this trip, and presumably because the elections are about to take place in England, and he'll wait for those elections to be over. The European Union, however, Modi is not very interested in. The attempt to have a summit, we haven't had, I think, an EU-India summit now, I may be wrong, in like 2 or 3 years, is largely a consequence of the fact that the only real single agenda is the EU-India FTA, which at present is stalled.
Right.
The EU we couldn't deal with for a while because they were undergoing a change. Their commission, the president, everybody in the council was all changed in December. So again, we had to wait for that to happen. And what seems to be the case is that this was cancelled simply because the European Union sat on the request for 1 month, simply because they were tied up, as has been mentioned, with their own domestic crises and the Ukraine crisis. And after a while, Modi just got impatient and said, okay, we'll cancel it, we'll do this at some other point.
Okay. Mr. Ram, you know, interestingly, I was reading one of the analysts writing about, you know, Germany being looked at, as far as India is concerned, as some kind of an alternate development model. You think that is something which will be of interest to watch during this visit?
Just a word with your permission. You know, I'll come to this, Germany.
Yeah.
The European Union is not the sum total, not the aggregate of its individual members. It is a lot more than that.
Okay.
So I, with due respect, disagree that the European Union is a partner whom we can accord a little lower priority in comparison
and then deal with these other countries bilaterally.
Yeah, because there is a common foreign policy now, there is a common economic policy, there's a single market, and I guess there are all kinds of things which are happening in Europe which make it necessary for the India-EU FTA to be completed very soon. And I think then it will be appropriate for Prime Minister Modi to pay a visit, or alternatively to receive the President of the European Union to India to sign that agreement, and the relationship can go forward. But economic component is not the only element there. We have a strategic interest there.
Right.
The summit level talks with the European Union include issues like terrorism, countering terrorism,
right.
Various other issues. Now,
black money. And
black money, absolutely. And in fact, you know, it's the largest economic package that India has in our economic relations. Approximately 28% of our economic exposure is with the European Union countries. Now, coming to Germany, and a word about France before that, and just a word, that, you know, Mrs. Gandhi realized that even during the Cold War years, Europe was the middle power. It was a part of the Western alliance, but it was not quite a part of the integrated Western military command. And consequently, she developed personal equations with people like Francois Mitterrand, Pompidou. Before that, of course, Panditji developed with de Gaulle and others. Our first economic linkages in Europe were with France, whether it was the nuclear issue or space, Vikram Sarabhai, Homi Bhabha, etc. Now coming to Germany. Germany is not a model that we can replicate for many reasons. Firstly, because Germany has always been a politically very, very diffuse but nevertheless a cohesive unit. They have had marriages of convenience in terms of setting up their governments, and who knows this better than Ambassador Rangachari. And consequently, they have worked well because their economic interests override all else. In our case, that doesn't seem to be the case. Even today, even though we are today looking at making a major breakthrough in our economic policies and programs, I don't think we have a national consensus on these issues. Germany probably has a little more. So I think we'll have to develop our own model, but Germany has to be factored into this as an economic partner, as a technology partner, as a partner in other areas.
Manufacturing. And
absolutely, absolutely.
So that this alternate development model.
Yeah, but I don't think there is a concept of alternative development. There is this thing that which we desire. We may have an alternative development program, but Germany, country like Germany can only contribute to our alternative development, not in the sense that Germany has alternative development plans, but the kind of technology they have, like clean technology, energy, infrastructure system, transport system, which can actually help our, the plans for sustainable development. This is where the modernization partnership is very important, which, the American model is slightly problematic. Even the Chinese model could be problematic. I think it is in that context we are talking about the European alternative model.
Do you see some kind of a clarity in the mind to the Indian government about these things and how they approach, what kind of approach they'll be having during this visit?
This is where I think the kind of items on which we are going to focus. This is linked with, say, pollution, clean Ganga, smart cities. All these things are linked with the
and bullet
kind
trains,
of, yes,
fast
exactly,
trains.
exactly, the infrastructure,
Yeah.
and all other issues. I think this visit is basically flows from those expectations that we have in our own country.
Mr. Rangachari, as far as both France and Germany are concerned, what Mr. Ram said and Mr. Stobdan says, how do you look at this? What is it that India will be looking at and trying to get from them?
Well, after more than 6 decades now, I don't suppose we need to go into the question of how we can reinvent the developmental model that we have been following. Because broadly, if we talk in terms of prosperity for all and inclusive growth, that about covers the requirements insofar as India is concerned. But I think, as Ram was saying earlier and Mr. Stobdan was saying just now, see, for example, take clean energy. This government, after taking office, has announced a very ambitious target of virtually doing 10 times what was targeted in terms of solar energy.
Right.
There are laws which Germany has passed, very stringent laws. Some of them, of course, are problematic. For example, those relating to nuclear power. We want to go the nuclear power route, and there is still a debate in Germany as to whether that is advisable, and Germans have gone one way or another, both ways, on this question of whether it is desirable or not. But insofar as the impact of climate change is concerned, if you look at the recent October APEC summit, when the United States and China reached a kind of a quote-unquote deal, the Europeans have actually entered into binding commitments, which was not the case in the US-China deal. And also, they have undertaken commitments which will take them back from the current levels back to the levels they have set as a base 1990 and so on. Whereas the Chinese and the Americans were talking about where India was coming, I wanted to link it up with the projects like, for example, solar energy.
Okay.
If you take the total power generation in India, it is about 2.56 gigawatts. out of which nuclear power provides, according to NPCIL figures, only 5,000 megawatts.
Right.
Now, Jaitapur has been mentioned in press reports about, ongoing negotiations and so on. Now, it is not unusual for nuclear power plant negotiations to go on over a period of time. And of course, within the country also there has been a certain degree of disenchantment, shall we say, and protests insofar as setting up a nuclear power plant is concerned. But solar energy is very eminently doable. And if in fact, with the assistance of not just countries in Europe, but also other partners, as you mentioned earlier, this question of financing which the East, China, Japan and so on have. In actual terms, India would have done much, much better for climate change and for controlling pollution, environmental degradation, etc., if we were to achieve that target, than any kind of open-ended commitments.
So
which are not
what is it that France will be looking at us? What happened to the nuclear deal with France? And France is actually looking at India to set up some of these nuclear plants here. And do you think Indian Prime Minister will be able to make any assurances on that front?
But you see, as far as nuclear power is concerned, I just mentioned to you the figures of what is the total, 5,000 megawatts per se.
But we have seen in this country the kind of debate which has gone on. Governments were about to fall on this whole issue.
Not just that, but also question of land acquisition.
Yes.
That comes in. The land bill is still, at the moment in Parliament. We don't know at what stage it is, whether it will go through or it will not go through. There are issues, but bigger than that is the question of how affordable India will find nuclear power to be. Price is also one of the issues that one will have to look at.
So you don't think that there will be any push towards that side from as far as the Indian side is concerned?
Or let me put it differently. Even if there is a push, how soon we will be able to get those megawattage out of nuclear power remains a question mark. We need the power yesterday. We will not be able to get it,
right?
Question mark.
Okay, Professor Deva, in these two countries, Canada. We are missing Canada also. We need to talk a little bit about what we can expect from Canada. But quickly, as far as France and Germany is concerned, you think India will be able to, what is it that is on offer for India, and what is it that India can offer them?
Well, core of this relationship is still trade and economics. And I agree totally with Ambassador Ram that it's not that simple that we can just differentiate European Union and individual member states. If the core is economics and we are negotiating trade and investment agreement with the European Union, not with the individual member states. At the same time, even if you look at investment which has actually taken place in India, of course our relationship with the Asian countries have obviously gone much beyond our expectation in some cases. But in the last 15 years, if you see investment which has come to India, European investment to India is much more than the American, Japanese and Chinese investment put together. So it means, still, if you're looking investment technology, Europe is very, very important. And the Europeans are also looking, because if you're opening our areas, particularly defense technology, and they do have defense technology, particularly with France.
And the whole Make in India business.
Make in India business, and all have shown very, great interest, particularly Germany and France. And France, in fact, if one is looking even the strategic partnerships, if one has to actually, say, rank all the strategic partnerships of India, I would say, India's strategic partnership with France would come immediately after Indo-Russian and Indo-US strategic partnerships. So it has been a long kind of relationship we have built over years and kind of understanding. Yes, Germany is also very important for trade, economics and other things. But on the broader issues, the issues which were, I think, again, identified by Ambassador Ram, on the maritime security, like French, they have, certain presence in the Indian Ocean, so we can work with them. There are issues on terrorism, which of course, you have to work mainly in the member state because still the competencies within the European Union are very limited. And there are many other areas, even in the development cooperation, in many areas, particularly in Africa, in other areas, Europeans are active, particularly German and French, they are the biggest players in the development cooperation. So we can work in many, many areas, and of course renewable energy, which of course they are important.
Okay, Rohit, Now, as coming to Canada, what is it that, why has it taken such a long time for an Indian Prime Minister to go on a bilateral visit? 4 decades is one hell of a long time.
Well, at the heart of it, you have to remember, is that Canada effectively boycotted India. Canada was one of the strongest opponents of India's nuclear testing, not only because they felt that the first test, the first Pokhran test, that India had violated its nuclear understanding with Canada because we used a Canadian-based reactor to create some of the plutonium that was used for the testing, and responded just as severely in the second test. So they have always been at the heart, for many years and many decades, they have been at leaders of the non-proliferation policy. And under their Foreign Minister Axworthy, they imposed virtually a complete boycott of India. They did very little with us, as little as possible. And it was actually only with the the US-Indian nuclear deal, that we saw Canada turn around and say, okay, we will actually support you in getting an exemption from the nuclear suppliers group and the proliferation sanctions that we ourselves had supported in the past. After that, we start to see the relationship change quite dramatically. And in fact, to be fair, I think the Indian side is actually quite surprised that the Canadians turned around so drastically on the nuclear issue. But after that, that opened up a whole set of areas which we could work with the Canadians.
Okay.
In addition, of course, our own economy, as we grew, we now have a lot more interest in their natural resources. And Canada, remember this, by 2030, Indians will be the single largest minority in that country.
Absolutely.
This is the new immigration frontier for Indians.
Right, Mr. Ram. Canada, it's a fascinating
I fully agree with them.
Pramit was talking, and what lies ahead.
I fully agree with Pramit. In fact, there are 3 reasons why the Prime Minister's visit to Canada is most timely now. One is, of course, there have been hiccups. Let's forget about the hiccups. Let's look at the future. Canada wields disproportionate influence, considering its size and economic strength in the global scene. It's a member of the Commonwealth. It's an economy which is in the G8. Second is, there are 1.5 million Indians who live in Canada. And the third is, it is rich in natural resources and technology. And I think for these 3 reasons, India must now certainly look at Canada afresh and build relations for our mutual advantage, of course.
Okay. Mr. Rangachari, as far as Canada is concerned, you think overall there will be, this, what Pramit was talking about, Indians becoming the second largest or first largest minority in the country?
But the Indian community, whether you take it, so far as the United States is concerned, or in many other countries, Mauritius, for example, Fiji, and so on, the Indian community has always played a very significant role in bringing that country closer to India. To that extent, very clearly, the presence of a large Indian minority in a country like Canada, which, as Ambassador Ram says, pointed out the many advantages of having closer relations with Canada, would certainly be very helpful. The question is, insofar as natural resources are concerned, to what extent are we in a position to exploit those natural resources? What kind of a trade can be established with Canada in those? And how can all that fit in with the way in which we want our economy to grow? Okay. These are questions that we need to talk about.
Okay, I think we are completely run out of time, but the Indian diaspora in Canada, the huge diaspora in Canada will obviously be waiting for Prime Minister Modi, and maybe we'll see another Madison Square Garden kind of event there. We'll wait and watch how this whole visit will come through, and we'll certainly come back and have a look at what happened during the 9-day visit after it's over. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with other issues of Big Picture same time tomorrow.